Programming with Python series, and in this video we are going to learn about inner classes. And first we will just dive right into the code, and we will learn that how we can create inner classes uh, inside a parent class, and then after that we'll discuss that why do we need inner classes in the first place. So first of all, let's just go ahead and create a class quickly. So we'll just in the previous videos, we were talking about computers, so let's just create a computer class. And inside this class, I will just create a constructor, which is called init method. And inside this method, I will take two arguments. So let's say, just like in the previous videos, the first argument will be space, and the second argument will be RAM. So I'll just go ahead and create my uh, variables inside this method for this certain class, and I will say, let's say self.disk is equal to space. So it will show the space of the hard disk of your computer. And in the next variable, I will just go ahead and save it as a RAM. So your RAM will be stored in this. So what I'll do, I'll just go ahead and simply create a function called show, and this function will just print out um, the value of my disk and the value of RAM. And after that, I'll just go outside this class, and here I will create an object. I will call it S1, let's say, and I will call my class, and this is my object. And from this object, I will call my function show. But before running this program, I'll just go ahead and give variables or the values or the arguments to my object. So, for example, I'll say that S1 object will have a disk space of 512 and a RAM of 16 GB or 16 GB. Right, so I'll just go ahead and save this program, and I will run this program using my Python 3. I'm using Ubuntu, so I'm writing Python 3 here, but if you're doing this on Windows, you can just write simple Python here. So just go ahead and run this program, and here you can see 512 and 16 has been printed out because these are the values of the disk and RAM that we gave to our class, right? So up till this point, this is just a simple class, right? I mean, it has it has nothing special. It's just same like the previous videos, right? So let's say that I want to create another class inside my uh, outer class, which is called computer. Let's say I want to create a class called specs, and in this class, what I want to store is the brand and the CPU of the computers, right? So for that, I'll just go ahead and simply do that again. My init constructor for this class, and I'll just go here and I will write self dot brand, and here let's say I give it a brand name Dell. And similarly, I'll just give it a CPU of, let's say, i5. And I will write another method, and let's just call it show again. And we will print out the value of brand and the value of CPU. Right. So what we want is that, I mean, we have created this specs class inside of our outer class, which is called computer. Let me just go ahead and uh, reduce this window so we can see all of our code together. So this class is inside this outer class, right? So whenever we will create an object of this class, if we want to find the specs of that object, we can just call this specs class from that object. So simply, what we have to do is in this object we have to call our class that we saved inside this. right? So what I can say is, let's say we create another object, and in this object we will call our first object, and from that we will call our specs, right? And this is called our inner class. We have created a new object with this inner class. So in S1 we have this computer. So basically we are asking our code, go inside this outer class computer, and then inside of that class find another object which is called specs, and which is related to this inner class that we have created. So I'll simply just go ahead and I will write s2 show. So now we have this second object of this inner class, and from this second object we are just calling the show function, which is this function. So let's just go ahead and save this, and let's try to run this program and see if it runs. So here you can see the first line is the show method from your first object, which was in your uh, outer class, right? So it just printed out the disk space and RAM, which is 5, 12, and 16. But the second show is related to your S2 second object, right? And this second object is related to this inner class specs. So that's why when you call show inside of, uh, I mean, from this object, then this method is being called. And here you can see the brand and the CPU has been, uh, I would say, printed out, right? And you can see Dell and i5 has been printed out. So what if we just, want to use other methods inside this inner class like setters or accessors, right? So let's just go ahead and create a setter. So I'll just call this setter, and I will give it self, and with self I will give it a new value that we want to set to the variable, right? So let's just say I want to change the brand name, right? So I will just call uh, self.brand, and I will give it to the new value, this. And after that, what I want to do is I just want to call my show function again, right? So here what I can do is I can simply call s2, and from this object which is related to your inner class, I want to call my setter, and in this setter I want to give a new value to my brand. So let's say I want to change my brand from Dell to HP. So I'll just go ahead and I will save this program and I will run this program. And here you can see in the first line, this is just, this s1 dot show, which is giving us the value of disk and RAM. The second line gives us the values from the inner class. It's printing out the brand and a CPU. But the third line, here we are setting the new value of the brand in the inner class, right? So what was Dell earlier, now it has been changed from Dell to HP, and we can see that here in the third line we have HP and i5. So that's how inner classes actually work, and that's how you can create inner class inside of an outer class. So basically, one might say that whatever we have done so far right here, it can also be done by, creating a separate class. So of course, that's completely correct. You can do all this by creating an outer class, a separate class. But sometimes when you're writing a code, what you want, you will have tasks that only wants to be repeated inside a certain class. For example, if we are talking about these specs, whenever I'm talking about computers, I only need specs in that time. If I'm talking about students, if I'm talking about let's say mobile phones, then I don't need these specs, right? So instead of making a new separate file for or new separate class for these specs, what we do is we just create a simple inner class inside this computer, because we know that we only will use this class when we're talking about computers. So that's why we are, generally we use inner classes inside of a parent class. So I hope you have learned by now that how we can create inner classes inside of our parent class, right? So yeah, that's it for this video.